All right, let's dive right into this explainer, the power of habit. When you really dig into the power of habit, you realize the power of habit isn't just a book about self-control. It's an investigation. It exposes a hidden machine right there inside your brain. The power of habit asks a really painful question. Why does your future so often lose out to one tiny, fleeting cue? Well, we're going to make that automated replay completely visible.
Author Charles Duhigg doesn't shame this replay, though. He maps it out part by part. Charles Duhigg brilliantly illustrates the visceral reality of exactly where we start. You reach for the old loop while the new plan is literally still open on your screen. You're exhausted from knowing better and then doing the exact same thing anyway. But let's be totally clear right off the bat, this is not a moral weakness. Your brain is essentially just an energy-saving machine, automatically turning repeated pressure into fast action to save fuel.
Act 1. The loop starts early. The architecture of your brain has already voted based on a tiny cue. Discipline arrives late. It's just too slow.
You wake up with a solid plan, right? No scrolling before work, no sharp replies, and then the cue arrives. A specific tone, a certain room, and your body moves first. Discipline stands at the door after the cue has already entered. The habit doesn't actually need your full consent. It only needs a familiar door. Once it opens, prediction becomes a pull. That pull becomes movement, and that movement becomes a story. The loop entirely bypasses your motivation. It's a completely automated system.
Which brings us to the forensic diagnosis in Act 2. The moment is a decoy. We have to completely dismantle this false belief that exhaustion just requires more discipline from us.
You've probably said it yourself. I just need more discipline. If I just force better choices, my habits will change. I wish this weren't true, but this book proves that tightening the command just worships the crisis moment. It completely misses the first move. Look at the mechanical reality of studying the underlying cue instead. It changes absolutely everything. That crisis moment you focus on, it's just a decoy.
The absolute core machine of this book is the cue routine reward loop. This is your biological default. It converts a trigger into an automated response simply because the brain predicts relief. A room has a certain smell, an inbox holds a threat, a phone has a pulse. Proximity shifts the entire grade. The cue is standing right there, close to you, while the goal stands far away. Prediction becomes a pull, and your movement becomes a story.
The heavy truth of this book is right here. The most repeated choice in your day is usually not a choice at all. You are exhausted. The old loop feels warm because it has carried you before. It doesn't stop to ask whether the cost went up. It just says, this worked once, use it again. Proximity to the cue overpowers those distant goals every single time. And I want to say this without an ounce of shame. That isn't stupidity. That is engineering under severe distress.
Let's move to the advanced paradox of this book in Act 3. The rescue system becomes a cage. The habit protects the self, yes, but it quietly replaces your agency.
Habits, scientists say, emerge because the brain is constantly looking for ways to save effort. Just let that realization land for a second. Your brain is simply trying to save you under repeated pressure. A named loop can still violently pull your hand. It lowers the pain today, but it raises your captivity tomorrow.
Think of a steel beam mid-fracture. The beam bends exactly where the load keeps returning. A beam does not confess, it just shows the load. Your habit is literally a load-bearing rescue system holding up a very tired structure. It highlights where stress keeps returning and exactly where relief became non-negotiable.
So what if the behavior you praise is also the behavior that traps you? Seemingly productive routines can just be habits wearing a noble costume. Checking one more thing, perfecting the plan, endless research, which is honestly usually just a fancy word for procrastinating on YouTube. Delay can wear the suit of high standards. A bad habit is often just a good solution that overstayed its welcome.
Act 4. Do not build courtrooms. We are stripping away the romance here. Let's look at the slate-cold decision tools for loop redesign.
You have to change the architecture before the vote even happens. Look at the dilemma here. One door says raise the standard until shame obeys. That just worships the crisis moment. But the other door, the friction door, says lower the friction until repetition obeys. Lowering the friction actually respects the biological mechanism. Shame might trigger motion, but friction design builds a reliable return.
Before expanding your options, check your constraints. Sleep debt, calendar load, social obligations, recovery time. I am naming these explicitly because high achievers love to weaponize habit building against their already exhausted systems. These are not excuses. They are the actual constraints of your room.
and a real plan has to start inside that room.
Here is the habit redesign experiment. Step 1, write the cue. Step 2, write the routine. Step 3, write the reward. Step 4, substitute the route. You absolutely must keep the exact same reward category, but lower the friction of the route. If relief is the reward, offer relief. If control is the reward, offer control. Do not try to swap numbness for a lecture. Your brain will simply not buy it.
What am I protecting with this routine? The old routine is literally just a record of how you found relief. You have to identify the relief, the control, or the numbing that the old habit reliably defends. Make real contact with that mechanism. Which brings us to the final integration, Act 5. Practice before proof. A loop is edited through tiny, real-world practice. It is not conquered by some massive war with the self.
The self is not the loop. The self is what can learn the loop. Practice means testing one clean exchange that is small enough to perform even when you're completely wiped out. That is where honesty begins. The loop starts before the decision, but that doesn't make you powerless. It just gives you the true starting line.
To do this safely, you need to establish kill criteria for your habit experiments. If the routine fails 3 times under the exact same cue, if the reward is not met, or if the routine increases your shame, kill the experiment. Every single failed experiment must be treated as data. It is not evidence against the self. Habit design is a test. It is not a vow.
The bending beam from Act 1 wasn't asking for blame. It was asking for a new load path. By isolating your cues, respecting your constraints, and mapping out a frictionless routine, you give your brain a new path of least resistance. At UpGoWise, practice comes before proof. Go to upgowise.com and access your growth map.
Your loop is not yourself. Name the constraint you invented, drop it. Before tomorrow, map your hardest cue. If not, you've chosen this. 300 seconds. Do the substitution. Without it, the signature fades.